Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Game of Thrones podcast. I'm your host, Carmine of RedTeamReview, and I'm joined here once again by Preston Jacobs and special guest Trey the Explainer. Now, guys, as always, we are available on SoundCloud and iTunes, so consider checking us out on those platforms, and if you do, please leave us a review. It'll help out a lot. Also, leave your comments down below because we may discuss it in the next podcast episode. Okay, so, Trey, it's been a minute. How have you been?
Oh, it's good to see you guys, talk to you guys. It's great to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How have you been, Trey?
I've been good. Busy with school stuff and all that. So it's been good.
Yes. Trey has a life outside of YouTube. We forget.
I've been learning how to horseback ride, so that's one weird thing I've been doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How are you liking it?
Oh, I love it. It's great stuff. It's a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to do without having your nuts like get hit all the time. There's a lot of up and down pounding that like I did a lot of horseback riding in my youth. But yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but and then I kind of got too big, and they're always like, we don't have horses big enough for you.
Because you're tall, right?
Yeah, I'm tall. Like I'm like 6'6" and about 210 pounds. And so a lot of like in America, it's not so hard to find horses that big, but like a lot of times you go someplace abroad and they're not expecting somebody like that to like crush and kill their horses.
What about the Netherlands? Everyone's tall there, like you.
Yeah, well, if I could just like live in the Netherlands, you know.
But Trey, no, welcome back. It's been a minute. I've noticed on Twitter you've been tweeting out some of the stuff about House of the Dragon. How have you been enjoying it so far?
It's weird where like I'll go way back and forth where like the last episode was at episode 8
yes.
Was phenomenal. It was like the best one, I think. And the writing was really great and the acting was just everybody's performances were stellar. But then like every now and then there'll just be like a really stupid like writing decision that they'll do for just like shock value.
Preston, you and I said the same. Someone brought this up. Was it you or someone else who brought this up last night on the live stream where like the episodes they come so close to perfect and then one thing happens where you're like, oh.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's like you're watching Godfather Part 2 and you're in the middle of this incredible scene.
Not this again.
You know, and you know, like Al Pacino's talking to Diane Keaton and they're having this really intense scene, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, fucking Adam Sandler walks in and is like, and you're like, what, why did you ruin that scene? What are you doing? What, it was so good, and then you fucked it up. Like, is that what, is it kind of like that?
Yes, it feels like that. Yeah, it definitely feels like that. Where you're right that it's like so close to perfect, and then it seems like they mess it up with just like one scene. You're like, why?
They keep dropping the ball. They keep dropping the ball on the 1 yard line. You know, I'd be like, oh my god, you were so close. You were so close.
So let's go into more detail about what we're talking about, because I didn't realize it until I got on your stream, and someone got on my case for this because I was actually talking about the episode with someone. And they were like, so you didn't hate it? I'm like, no, I had minor nitpicks, but they were whatever. I get on Preston's stream, and then Preston highlights why these small nitpicks are like actual issues, and I'm like, fuck, I didn't think of it that way. And then it becomes issues as well. That's in my head.
It was even me. It was even my fans. Like I left that episode being like, oh, this might be my second favorite episode, and then people are like, really, that ending? Come on. And I'm like, all right, now that you've made me think about
it. So let's talk about the small council meeting. The one thing I like is how the mood is set. I'll be honest, I had the chapter open. In fact, I think I still do. This is something I've been doing lately, where I have the actual chapter to the thing open, and I was waiting for certain cues. Obviously, Beesbury's death, the roles that everyone takes to overthrow Rhaenyra and make sure she doesn't get the throne. But the one thing that you pointed out that I missed was Christian Cole being the kingmaker, which he is not, because he has this whole speech about, why Rhaenyra and her bastards shouldn't be on the throne, about Laenor and what he, quote-unquote, was. and how they'll turn the Red Keep into a brothel. No man's wife or child will be safe. None of that happens, which is weird because Christian Cole has not been shy on being an asshole, but here, nope, doesn't say anything.
Right. They cut out his like primary asshole speech that like culminates his entire story. Like, right, brings everything together on everything wrong with Kristen Cole, and like all of the problems, all the seeds of the past are supposed to sprout at that one moment, and then they just removed that. They removed the sprouting.
I'm gonna be so annoyed if that's like a deleted scene. Because Trey, have you heard about this? How a lot of the show has been removed from deleted scenes, like actual good moments.
I read about like the Alicent, Kristen Cole, like her admitting her feelings for him or something like that.
Yeah, it's a deleted scene where Alicent admits to Rhaenyra that she has a crush on Christian Cole, which is weird because there's a scene in this episode, if you notice, when he comes in, they get very close to each other. If you have any love for me as your queen, you'll do this. And he's like, yeah. So... Yeah, Christian Cole fucking suffers in this episode. But besides that, Preston, what else did they remove from the Green Council? Larys?
Larys is not there.
They removed the blood oath thing that they did together. They cut their hands together.
Yeah, they removed the blood oath. They changed Beesbury's death from to something that's actually less violent, you know, like before, like I know smashing his head into the table is violent, but like there's something a little more visceral to Kristen Cole opening his throat like over the table, you know. And then there's a lot of distraction. Like I almost felt that like the Westerling stuff took away from everything else. I didn't mind the addition of Alicent being confused. Like I didn't mind that. Just because Olivia Cook is such a good performer, and she's just like, wait, what are you guys doing? Like I didn't mind all of that. Like I don't mind them like walking back Alicent from being evil stepmother to somebody that's a little more relatable. But yeah, I think the fact that like what I take away from that scene is more of a inserted Barristan Selmy recreation scene with Westerling rather than a scene that I wanted to be Kristen Cole the Kingmaker. You know, like this is his time to shine, and he didn't shine. Yeah,
I thought Westerling was gonna die because in the books doesn't he die before the small council meeting?
Oh yeah,
of, like, natural causes?
He's long dead. He's long dead at this point. And so I think they just want they want familiar faces maybe on Rhaenyra's small council or something later on. That's weird. In the previews, there's another bald guy with a goatee. Where I'm like, was that Westerling? No, that doesn't even look like Westerling. Are they gonna have two bald guys with goatees?
I think you're misguided on this because Westerling said, yeah, I don't take orders from you guys. I take orders from the king. So whenever you get that guy installed, let me know. I'll come back. That's what he essentially said. So he didn't say, I'm going to go join their side. He didn't say anything like that. All he said was, call me back when you guys have figured this out. That's it. So we don't know.
So he's gonna come back at like after the war and be like, "Hey, Aegon the Third, we finally settled on a king."
You sat that one out, or he's like gonna serve Gaiman Palehair or something like that.
Gaiman Palehair got like 3 seconds of screen time. I thought it was gonna be like this whole thing. No, he got like look, we don't even know if that's Gaiman Palehair. I don't think it's been confirmed.
Random kid with blonde hair. it's like not even Aegon's. It's just a kid.
But no, they changed quite a bit in the small council scene, which I like. It was a decent scene. I like the mentions of River Run and Storm's End and all that stuff. I love the little lore tidbits.
Yeah.
Harold Westerling being there, it's a fine addition. I don't mind it. Alicent, you're right. Alicent being confused. She's not evil stepmom. The other thing that they also changed was Viserys. It's within 24 hours that his body gets attended to. In the original source material, don't they leave it there for a long time before they even call Rhaenyra?
Yeah, it stinks. Right? It starts rotting.
Yeah, but bodies actually do start stinking pretty quickly. So like even in the source material that they spend a few hours in the middle of the night deciding on stuff, that's actually in real life like long enough for a body to start stinking.
I wonder if George actually did like research on the bodies.
Yeah.
You're writing the fanfic. Like, is this some research you would do? You did research on the jousting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think my research now has surpassed George's on jousting, but like I think it all depends. Like, there's certain things he really knows a lot about, and then there's certain things that, because you can't research everything, and so you're gonna mess up something. You know, like I say, George is really bad on economics. He's really bad on like where a city should be located in geography, like in geography wise, like what would make sense. So like there's certain things he's really good at. I mean, he knows a lot about like genetics and things like that for some reason. I mean, from sci-fi days. And he knows a lot about like, I'm sure someone's going to correct me and be like, no, he doesn't. But I want to say he knows a moderate amount about a lot of little things. Like castles and armor, but then like people that know a lot like will point out his mistakes, you know, about like how often boiled leather was worn or whatever. But recently I've been doing some studies I've been researching castles and like drawbridges and moats and things like that, and I realized like, oh, George didn't really do that much research on this. This is why he's fairly abstract when he describes castles, you know, so you don't really understand the battle plan or how or invasion or things like this, or how a castle is getting taken, because if he goes into it too much, he's gonna show his lack of knowledge. But you know, so
that's why I remember reading the Game of Thrones and like how the Eries like set up, like it seems so impractical, like construction wise.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think the Eyrie is set up most to be like, somebody pointed out that the Eyrie is set up mostly to be a metaphor of going up into a woman's uterus, which is like, yeah, that's kind of true.
Dang.
Yeah, there's a whole thing about like the bloody gate and the gates of the moon being like associated with women, and then going up into the Eyrie, which is impregnable, like you can't, and it being like this barren place where children, you know, like it's a metaphor for Lysa's vagina and uterus. It's kind of weird when you actually read the whole thing.
that went over my head. Dang.
Oh yeah. I mean the fact that like Lysa becomes essentially like a stillbirth or an abortion, like at the end, like metaphorically, it's really kind of like when falling out of the moon door. It's
oh my god.
Yeah. Once you're told that and you reread the chapters, you're like, oh fuck, like it's so there. But there's little things like when Jaime goes to River Run and like meets with the Blackfish. And I was like just trying to figure out a simple thing, like, what's the moat like? Like, how big is the moat? How are we, you know, like, because River Run is like this castle in between all of these rivers. And so how can a bridge be long enough? Like a drawbridge wouldn't be long enough to cross the river. So how are they actually getting into River Run? Like, how is Jaime standing on the drawbridge waiting for the Blackfish to come out to treat? Like, how is that scene even happening? And I'm like, it's like, once you start examining it, it's really difficult to envision once you start thinking about it too much. But if you don't think about it too much, it's a great scene, you know? Like,
actually, I think the show handled that quite nicely. I think someone on the show staff for season 6, was that 6? Of Thrones had a good idea on how that would work. Jaime, part of the bridge is just normal, and then the other half just comes down and up.
Yeah.
So Jaime just stands on one end.
Right, it's like a long wooden bridge. It's like a long wooden bridge where a drawbridge like meets the end of it, right? You know, but like what gets counted when it says that you know, Jaime is on the drawbridge? Like, is that part of the drawbridge? You know, all these little things you start thinking about. Like, what do you mean when you say you're standing on the drawbridge? Are you standing on the wooden bridge leading to the drawbridge? Anyway, this is a random tangent.
No,
But like,
because now I'm looking up artwork that people have done of like the A Song of Ice and Fire book version of River Run, and it's like looks super weird and impractical. Like, I think people are having trouble getting an idea of like how even to depict it.
yeah, absolutely. Like, if, you know, like it's also it all like rivers for the like move over time, and even in Ice and Fire, rivers move over time. So like, how is River Run going to stay in the same place to be like over thousands of years? Like, because if it's a small river, it's going to move more than if it's a large river. So like you could say, well, maybe River Run doesn't have that big of a river around it, but then River Run's around for like thousands of years. Wouldn't the river have moved? Who knows?
Oh, by the way, real quick, people kept hitting me up to correct you because you said something wrong about the twins. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about, Preston? The twins. You said something wrong about the twins or something.
No, I didn't say anything wrong about twins. Like, I didn't.
What happened there? Because I noticed quite a few people getting on your case about like twins and stuff.
I do not know. I do not know. So like the you know, like I made the statement that identical twins are they're monozygotic, meaning like identical twins, there's like a split and of the zygote. So they have nearly the same DNA except for like, you know, very, very small mutations. And then so like, and identical twins in the real world are pretty rare. Like, for the most part, most twins are fraternal, meaning there's 2 eggs to start. And you have 2 fertilizations, so they're you know, dizygotic, right? And then you know, it's like anything. Like, I think what happens is somebody hears me say something, and then they go and they immediately scan a Wikipedia article or something really fast, and they find some like crazy exception. And then they post back like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You know nothing about genetics. Like you're ignorant. And you're like, what? Like what? Like, because like, no, there's like a handful of times in history, there's like some case where you could have a male identical twin that has a mutation where the Y isn't expressed on the second twin, and therefore it comes out female. It's happened like, honestly, like it's recorded like 4 times in history. Like it's like that rare. And it's like, were you really thinking about that? Or did you like look up a Wikipedia article, find some sort of random like obscure exception just to like come back and like tell me that? Like if I made the statement like human beings have 2 kidneys, and then, you know, it turns out actually like fairly frequently people are born with 1 kidney, or people are born with 3 kidneys, or people are born with 6 kidneys. Like, this happens, okay? But you wouldn't come back to somebody and be like, you said that humans have 2 kidneys. You don't know anything about like biology. Like, go fuck yourself. Like.
Well, the reason I ask is because the twins, they're sent out on a mission this time. I found it so weird that only now they're introduced. Aren't they Kingsguard for quite some time when we get to the Green Council, like for years?
I think so, but you know, you don't really hear about them until their incident, right? Where they do the I'm trying to spell their names so I can like look it up. Arik and Eric. You know, they're good characters, and it just seems weird to introduce them and then immediately after introduction have their split. Like, it would have been nice to have them for like to build up to it, but I guess there's just so many characters and things are moving so fast that it's tough to get it. Now, it says that Eric and Arik were in that original Kristen Cole tourney back in 105 that had Rhaenyra like catch the eye. You know, like the reason Kristen Cole is on the Kingsguard is that supposedly in the source material, Rhaenyra is a little girl and she sees Kristen Cole perform well at a tourney, and she's like, I want him on. I want him on the Kingsguard, and so he's put on the Kingsguard. They're both in that they're already Kingsguard by like in that tourney. So Kristen Cole unhorses them, and that's one of the ways he impresses little girl Rhaenyra. She's like 7. Like she's like 7 or 8 years old at this point.
It's safe to assume that since the episode time skip, they've been there for quite some time.
Right, and they're old. Like that's the at least in the source material, they're old. They're like in their I assume they're in their 50s, in the or at least their 40s.
Here they look like guys in like their late 20s.
Yeah, exactly. But they would be in their mid 40s to early 50s or something in the source material.
But no, the reason I bring them up is I like them. I like the two characters. I like how both brothers have like, conflicting opinions on, what's going on with Aegon and why he should or shouldn't be king and why they shouldn't or shouldn't support him. I just found the fact that, see, what I would have done instead was I wouldn't have included Misaria in any of this because I found her very pointless. Because what they could have done was just found Aegon at the underground arena and have Aemond and Christian Cole tail them and then, engage in a fight outside the arena. Misaria being in this, it just seems utterly pointless, like they're setting her up for later seasons. And I understand that she's supposed to be a voice of the small folk, but at the same time, the character is kind of pointless right now.
Her meeting with Otto, I felt was kind of weird, like the both of them being like hooded and having like this conversation, and it seemed like they had known each other before, but then there's aspects of the conversation that seemed like they've never met each other before. It was kind of weird.
Right. So you're the White Worm. Like you've been communicating with her for decades.
I like the theory that, because this was a strong theory. I don't know if I was the one that made it, or I don't know. I originally thought that it was kind of weird and suspicious that Otto was the one that found out about that. I wonder if he had any about the air for a day joke. I wonder if he had any spies in the brothel when Daemon made the joke. Because I was wondering, maybe Misaria was Otto's spy the entire time. But I think, Preston, were you the one that said, or maybe
That's what it seems like. It definitely seems like that when you go back and view it. Like she's the one that pushes him into making that speech. So it seems like Misaria would be the informant for Otto. Going in retrospect like that. So
were you the one that put out the theory that maybe she was the one that said the joke and Daemon was covering for her?
I think it was brought up. I'm not sure if I really pushed it very hard. I think you and I were spitballing and coming up with various like possibilities with the air for a day situation. Because in Fire and Blood, it's supposed to be Harwin Strong and Larys that are reporting on Daemon, because it says that some sort of sergeant in the Gold Cloaks reports, and they just introduced Harwin Strong as a sergeant in the Gold Cloaks, and literally no other sergeant of the Gold Cloaks is ever named. So you're supposed to kind of think that it's Harwin Strong that reports him. But then they also mention that a working woman also reported it. So, and with these two testimonies, they have proof against Daemon. So maybe the working woman would be Misaria, but depends how you read it, right? But then again, it's a confessor to Larys. Anybody can be tortured and confess to anything at that point. So maybe it's meaningless, but it's definitely Larys. It's definitely Larys having a hand in creating the incident. But Larys wasn't even introduced at that point in our story in the show, so it couldn't have been Larys. So
yeah, I just don't see a point in having her. Once again, I get it's to set her up for later down the line when she has a bigger role to play. But right now, what was even the point? Why did she even get a character poster?
Do you think that they're... See, we're sitting here theorizing about it as if they've been this careful. But do you think they're just like throwing out an ink blot and then hoping that it looks like something in the end?
That is possible.
Maybe. I just find it so weird that, once again, there are other characters who I feel as though have more of an impact on the story than she did.
Yeah.
Like, I would even argue, why didn't Joffrey Lameth get a fucking poster or Crab Feeder? They kind of did more than she did. Kinda, right?
Yeah, it's true. But she's a pretty woman, and they wanted like something sexy for people to be like, ooh, she's gonna be in the show. You know,
Vaemon had more of importance than Misaria does, and he doesn't get a poster. What the fuck?
Daemon didn't get a poster.
Vaemon.
Vaemon. Yeah. But he's not as sexy. I mean, Vaemon's a sexy man, but he's not as sexy as Misaria. I mean, let's.
Speaking of sexy, I was talking to Trey. Hits me up last night, and he's like, "Yo, what was that foot scene?" I'm like, "Trey, you've never." Is that weird to you? Because you never. What did I say to you? You never like encountered people that have like these weird fetishes. You know.
I guess I just wasn't expecting it. I guess I wasn't paying attention. I was like, oh wait, whoa. Because
the rumor.
It is kind of weird
much
that
worse.
We've had twincest. We've had twincest on the show, but like foot fetish. Like everybody's like, what foot fetish? like two twins fucking each other in the first episode of Game of Thrones is like, whatever. This guy masturbated to a foot fetish.
It just seems like such a modern fetish. I guess it's just weird to see it in a medieval setting. I guess it did exist back then.
The rumor was much worse. The rumor, I don't know if you remember this, Preston. The rumor was much worse. It was he actually ejaculates on her feet.
Oh, when people that had seen the early episodes were going around telling us this. Yeah.
Yeah, like apparently he whips out his dick and he's supposed to have ejaculated on her feet. I don't know, I don't know if that was a deleted scene, which I would love to see. I don't know if that was a deleted scene or like maybe they over embellished.
I could easily see the scene going a bit longer, where how she's looking away. Like I could see like it going a bit longer, where you see a figure stand up and walk towards her, and then cutting off.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that be like something?
Wait, really? I gotta go back and watch this. Really?
No. That didn't happen. But like one could imagine that you could extend the scene out longer to have him stand up and walk a couple paces.
That Larys actor is so creepy too. He's got like a creepy face. Just a weird face.
Poor guy.
I feel bad for saying
honestly,
that.
You know what? I'll take creepy foot fetish guy over Meryn Trent's bullshit in Game of Thrones any day. Because remember, he liked beating little girls amongst other things. So I'll take foot fetish guy over that any day of the week. And I feel so bad for the people listening to this and watching the show who actually have foot fetishes, who are like, come on, that's not that bad.
I do think the scene though with Meryn Trent was a little silly in the sense that, like, yes, Meryn Trent is a horrible person for being a for wanting to beat and have sex with little girls. But what was odd is that the madam was like shocked by it. And I was like, wait a minute, you're the madam of a brothel. I'm sure you've seen everything, okay? Like, he cannot be like unusual, Like, every day we open up the news, we open up the news and see people arrested for Meryn Trant kind of shit. So I did think that scene was a little weird, that the woman would be like, what? You want a young girl? Like, oh god, like, that's unheard of.
But no, like I was saying, I did enjoy that Aegon was at first hesitant to really take the crown, like, let me go, you'll never see me again. And Aemon's like,
the strength of this episode, and why I really loved why it was such a perfect episode up until the end, was that this was a journey into the character of Aegon. And I loved how the characters were going around the city and meeting different people that told the story of Aegon. Like, he's the type of person that would bring his little brother to a brothel. He's the type of person that would go see like little children battle in the basement of some place. He's the type of person that evades his Kingsguard to sneak out. He's the type of person who, when feeling upset and scared, decides to hide and accept. And he's the type of person who doesn't really want to be on the throne. And he's the type of person who feels like his father doesn't love him, and he feels like his mother doesn't love him. And, you know, like that journey and seeing like every beat, like, oh, this is a little bit more about Aegon. This is a little bit more about Aegon. We're really discovering the kind of person he is. And each beat was like a surprise. Like, that's something new about him. That's really kind of adds a little more wrinkle to him. That's what I loved. Like was the journey, with the journey of the characters, unraveling the character. And so like all the things that you kind of have problems with, Carmine, in this episode are like the extra stuff that was just shoved in, like Misaria or the dragon at the end. You know?
Well, I would say the other MVP this episode, and maybe the whole show, was Alicent. This episode really cemented her as a really different character from the source material, and I really like the change. She doesn't scheme behind the scenes like Cersei, because some people tried to make that comparison, and her going against Otto's own plans was like freaking awesome, because she didn't want to be like that chess piece forever. This is the episode that really put her out there as a player in the game, and I really liked it. She's not the generic evil stepmother like in the books. They legitimately gave her some depth, and yeah, like the character is way better for it. Really, really good episode for her.
Yeah, I mean, Alicent is probably the richest character that we have in the show. There's so much going on with her, and she has so many conflicts in her head that she's, you know, I can't think of a character that's more complex than her.
I would argue, though, the one thing I didn't like that they should have done was the scene between her and Rhaenys was fine. I just wish there was a acknowledgement from Alicent that, yeah, Aegon is kind of a piece of shit, but he's still my son. Because then it would have called out to Rhaenys a bit more, who just supposedly lost her son in a previous episode. And that last scene where Rhaenys just kind of stands there looking at them makes more sense, because Alicent gets in front of him, right, and their eyes meet for a minute, and she's like, you know what? Okay. I get it. You love your son. I'll give you what I didn't get.
And you know how I bitch about this. I hate the whole reverting to like motherhood being the only characterization of women that writers seem to want to use. Like, I fucking hate it, and that ending annoyed me as well. Like you just, like, Rhaenys, you just murdered like 1,000 innocent people.
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know if you both saw this. I just did a video on it today. The writer for the episode, Sarah Hess, the interviewer asks her, "What about the small folk?" And she says, "They're just, you know, they're the small folks. They don't matter. That casualty count doesn't matter." Oof. She says this.
Yeah. But it also, like, it makes it so unrealistic that, yeah, she would kill 1,000 people, and then she would sit there, and it's because Alicent is defending her son, she sees that motherly, again, it's the fucking mama bear shit. And then she, like, that gives her the sympathy, like, oh my gosh, I'm about to take your son from you. I better, like, leave, even though I just killed 1,000.
Wait, really? Because the article says that's not what's going through her head.
I mean, that's what Ryan Condal says in the inside of the episode, that it was she sees Alicent's motherliness and decides that and realizes that she's a mother too, and they leave. And she leaves because of it.
Oh, well, once again, I just kind of wish that was, like, made more clear, because all it seems like Rhaenys is doing is threatening the royal family, because in the article here, it's different. The reason why Rhaenys doesn't roast them is not for some motherly shit, it's because it's not her war. The fight is between these two sides, and she's kind of not in it. She doesn't feel like she's the one to come in and do that. But the cost.
This is the weird thing, is when different writers say different things about the same scene. This has happened a lot.
Because this happened in a past episode, right?
Which one?
When we're Daemon's impotence.
Oh yeah.
Everybody was giving their own random fucking reason on why Daemon left the brothel.
Well, what's funny is the audience is also saying something different. So in my comment section for that video, people were saying to me, well, she probably didn't want to do it because the stigma of kinslaying.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
That's
what do you mean?
That's what I'd said. Like everyone's like, give me a reason on why Rhaenys didn't roast them. I was like, I don't know, maybe kinslaying. Ryan Condal's excuse was because he saw that she was a mother and realized that she was a mother too.
Sarah Hess's excuse, the writer, is that it's not her war. Bro, you just attacked citizens of King's Landing, endangered the royal family, and essentially threatened them. And also, I love the motherfucker.
And your granddaughters, your only descendants are betrothed to Rhaenyra's children. Like,
well, I'm like thinking about like in like the books when like Dany's dragon comes to like the fighting pit and like how many people die as a result of that. Or in like just people getting just trampled through by accident or just like crushing people.
That's funny you say that, because I love the comment in my comment section for that video. Someone goes, well, it's the stigma of kinslaying, and you know, Helena's there. I'm sure she didn't want to roast any innocents. Bro, she killed like 50 people coming up from the underground. What do you mean?
I mean, at least with Dany at the dragon pit, like she doesn't know if she's in control of Drogon or not. At the moment, she doesn't even think she's in control of Drogon. Like, one can make an argument that she's subconsciously in control of Drogon, but Dany certainly doesn't know that she's in control of Drogon, so she can't really feel guilty about, or too guilty about, all of those people dying. I think Rhaenys killed more people. I mean, Rhaenys has now like jumped ahead to being the most evil person in the show.
She's got the highest body count.
She killed. Not only did she kill people by like coming up from under the arena, but also the other deaths attributed to her during the stampede.
Yeah. I mean, this is like, is she worse than the crab feeder?
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I mean, we don't know how many crab feeder tortures some people, but we don't know how many people the crab feeder has killed, right? I think they did say how many people were in the war. Like it was in the hundreds. Right, their force that was down there. So I mean, if she's killed like hundreds of people, all of a sudden she's zoomed way past the other characters in how evil she is. Like even like Laenor and Daemon were killing people in war, which is a little different, you know. But you know, they were killing hundreds of people, I suppose. But it was war, and these were pirates who were murdering people who are going through the stepstones. But even Daemon, like, even if we said that everybody that Daemon killed as when he was with the gold cloaks were actually innocent and that he was making that up, that was a few dozen, you know, at most. Like, Rhaenys has like surpassed all of them as the most evil person.
it's weird because
you hyper focus on this. I love it. I'm sorry, Trey.
Oh no, you're good. I think like one thing that I kind of felt about it is that like it feels like it prematurely like starts the war.
Yes.
Yeah. Like in my head, like I always saw that the Dance of the Dragons like starts at like Storm's End. I guess like next episode.
Oh, and
like
and
this
Rhaenys,
is like a mass death.
Trey, did you see I'm glad you said that. Did you see the preview for episode 10?
Oh yeah, I have.
She actually, I put this in my preview review. She actually fucks up by saying, Rhaenyra, the Greens, they're coming for your children. That now you have that in mind. You really want to negotiate, or you want to fight for your life and the life of your kids?
Right.
But how does Rhaenys even know that? I mean, I understand that Otto's intention is definitely to execute everybody, but Alicent doesn't want to execute everybody. Alicent wants to negotiate. And then did she say something to Rhaenys? See, now I have to look. That's something I have to look for in the rewatch. Like, did she say something to Rhaenys that people are going to be executed? That they're coming for them?
The executions, I think, of the loyalist lords towards Rhaenyra, I think that was done under Alicent's nose, so she probably doesn't know about it, because this entire episode is Alicent and Otto going back and forth to see who has the power. Because remember, Otto made the deal with Misaria to leave the kids in Flea Bottom alone, but here you have Alicent and Larys doing their own thing and taking revenge on Misaria. I was confused about that whole scene of the burning scene, but that was Misaria's house/base of operations. So,
yeah, and I thought there was a burning inside the Red Keep, but I'm not sure about that now. It might have just been a weird cut. So I've got on my rewatch, I have to like look through this. This is also kind of, now we're pointing out bad things. Like if we're all very confused about what's going on, it's probably not done well.
No, don't say that. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it actually quite a bit.
It was so good. But you're right that like the fact that you had to send me a picture of a side by side, like this is Misaria's house from episode 8, and this is Misaria's house from episode 9, and me going, oh, like that's not what the average viewer is doing.
Trey, you saw that, right? I think I put it on Twitter, and you saw it.
Yeah, because I saw the building and I didn't know what I was looking at. Like I didn't know what building that was. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, I thought it might have been the fighting pits.
Yeah,
but no, it was Misaria's house.
And so that was Larys' guys burning down.
Yes, it was
building?
the same guy who
or Larys himself.
It was the same fire starter who did the stuff and killed his family at Harrenhal.
Oh, I didn't even know we saw his face.
I
thought his face was obscured.
Because I always download the episode on my viewing program. I was able to increase the brightness. They have the same beard.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't Larys Kaiser Solsay walking around without his clubfoot.
Who knows? He could have put on like a little beard disguise.
And is it by the way, is it freaking bees or is it fireflies?
I believe it's fireflies.
Is it
but
fireflies?
He made a whole bee metaphor. He made a whole fucking bee metaphor.
I'm gonna see Larys' cane. It's on his cane.
Go to houseofthedragon.com or Google House of the Dragon Larys character profile, and it'll tell you like what's in the cane. It should be a firefly.
No. First of all, you cannot fucking trust like what's on HBO.
What? Why?
When people are like the HBO supplemental material says this, I'm like, no, that's written by a rando. Okay, that's written by a rando. Like this idea that Kristen Cole is Dornish, and then they like put that in the material. No, that was just a fuck up. He's not fucking Dornish. It's stupid. Like he's from the Dornish marches. They clearly just fucked up and had the characters say that they're Dornish, and then the person like put it in on the online like site. That's clearly what happened. Like there's a scene where Viserys calls his daughter Rihanna, and it's like, no, her name isn't like alternatively Rihanna. Like just stop making excuses.
Rihanna, where was this?
Yeah, I think it's in the first couple episodes. He says Rihanna.
No, he does not. You are lying.
Yeah, he does.
Is this a Lady Sandra situation? I didn't catch that at all.
It's a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit. He says like Rihanna or something.
How about this? I'll give you this. I'm okay with Christian Cole being Dornish and not really Dornish at the same time. They probably just said that because the actor has, is half white, half something else.
Okay. So I think it's just because he was from the Dornish marches, and people are like, "Oh, Dornish marches." I guess that if you're from the Dornish marches, it must be part of Dorne.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm okay with this as long as they include in Alicent's profile that she's a bit of a racist. Then it makes more sense because I love
Preston. Preston, there's a post, there's like an article that claims that HBO has just unveiled that the personal sigil of Larry Strong to be a firefly.
There it is.
However, if you look at their source is Thrones Facts, like a Twitter account, and I think they thought that this is like an official account from HBO, but it's not. It's like a fan account. At least I'm pretty sure.
Just go like
he makes a full fucking bee metaphor. Like there's no way.
It doesn't have a stinger, I guess, but it's a stylized. So like it doesn't have to have a stinger, I guess.
It also looks short for me to be a firefly, because firefly bodies are very long and thin. But
here it is.
It depends if there's like the gem is considered part of it. Oh god, I've looked at it and I'm like, it's a little fat for a firefly.
It's a firefly. Personal items: firefly cane. Larys uses the short staff inset with golden firefly for support. Yep.
Okay.
You're like source random dude Twitter account.
Nope.
6969.
Nope. HBO.com. HBO.com, baby. It's right there.
The writers can't even agree on like whether Daemon is impotent or not. Like they're not fucking. They don't know if it's a fucking firefly or bee. There's clearly a disconnect. Some of the writers think it's a bee, and some of it think it's a firefly. I'm going with that. That the writers are just confused. They don't even know if Kristen Cole is Dornish. It's like, clearly someone was like, oh, the French Riviera, that must mean it's in France. Well, you're right. The French Riviera is in France. But like, oh, the Dornish marches, that must be in Dorne. Well, no, it's not actually.
You're fucking me up here because I'm looking for this. There's no way you were the only person that caught this because I'm looking this up. If Viserys said Rhaena, I'm not finding it. Are you sure?
I remember it, and I remember it personally, and then I remember somebody in my comment section saying it, and I was like, oh, I guess I didn't mishear, because I definitely, but it just wasn't, I mean, not that many people talked about the Sandra thing either.
Didn't even notice I'll be honest with you, I didn't notice that Lyanna Mormont called Sansa Sandra until you pointed it out.
Sandra?
Right, like naturally, the human mind is very forgiving to other people speaking to us. Like we edit people's like speech because we're all imperfect speakers, and people's brains accept that, so we reorder stuff and process it properly, and we don't even think about it. So like it's you know, for us reanalyzing and rewatching stuff over and over again, that's not how things are done naturally. So like people misspeak, okay? You know, he said Rihanna, he said Sandra. I know it's just a joke, but it's like
Rihanna. I don't know how to catch this. What the fuck?
Yeah, I'll have. I mean, when we go back, we'll have to get it. But
I had a gripe this episode. I had a gripe about Aegon's crown.
It looks a little heavy.
I felt like it should have more rubies. It had this very, very tiny ruby in it, and it was very distracting for me. I don't know. Some people got upset.
You're totally right, though. It doesn't have any rubies.
It has one tiny ruby, one tiny one in the center, and it's puny. It looks wimpy. And people were like, Aegon wouldn't care about rubies. He was a warrior. He didn't care about that stuff. And I was like, okay.
Like, we know nothing about Aegon, okay? Aegon could be like Woody Allen. We have no idea what he was really.
So you know what somebody said to me? They actually, let me find what they said. They said he was a king, not a queen. He wouldn't care about his crown. I was like, whoa, I'm not going to even acknowledge that.
I'm trying to remember in the source material if they have to resort to Aegon's crown because Jaehaerys' crown was stolen. And they're like, fuck, well, I guess we have to wear Aegon's crown. Because Jaehaerys' crown... So I think Viserys wears Jaehaerys' crown? Or is it... Am I again confusing things on which crown Viserys wore?
Yes, the crown of Jaehaerys the First. Viserys wears it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the crown of Jaehaerys, which is the crown of Viserys, gets stolen and brought to Rhaenyra, and that's what Rhaenyra wears. And I forget if that's the reason they had to use Aegon's crown, or if they were already using Aegon's crown and they just stole Jaehaerys' crown. And anyway, and so. It makes Rhaenyra.
It says Prince Aegon had decided to wear the steel ruby crown of his namesake. Alicent ordered Viserys' crown locked away. So they're going to use Aegon's crown in the first place, and then Viserys was stolen later.
Okay.
To be fair, it looks different from. I'll be honest with you though. I kind of like the one we saw in the show and last night's episode, but at the same time, it all looks fine. The artist's interpretation looks cool as well, but for practical sake, that was fine. It looks a little big on him though.
I mean, I'm sure with big jewels and everything, it's harder to film. Mm-hmm. Like there's probably like lighting that like sparkles through it and makes everything annoying. I bet it's something like that.
What other gripes did you have, by the way, Trey? Because I know you enjoyed the episode for the most part, but I'd also know you on Twitter you had some issues.
It was mainly the ending. The ending just kind of was, I thought was, I don't know, problem ending. I don't know, it was like spectacle for shock's sake. They've done it with multiple episodes at this point.
Like the shock of the first episode. Well, we have like two shocks in the first episode. We have the deaths at the tourney, and we have the C-section. So and I think the C-section one was good, and the deaths at the tourney was bad, In episode 2, what were our shocks? Did we have any?
Lena being like 10 and talking about her being bedded to Viserys when she turns 14, I guess.
Yeah, I guess the big shock at the end is that it was the marriage. So there were no big ones. There were no big shocks in the big shock that they tried in episode 3, which wasn't that much of a shock, was the boar being on top of Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole stabbing the boar through the head and having the knife be really close to her face and having her come back to camp like covered in blood. But that wasn't too bad. And then episode 4's big shock was
the battle.
Is that the brothel and the sex with Kristen?
I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then the episode 5's big shock is Joffrey Lonmouth, which I think that one did not land.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. The battle. Oh, fuck. I'm totally forgetting about
the one-man
everything
army
going on in the Stepstones. Yeah, you're right.
And the anticlimactic.
No, there's like sometimes.
Okay.
There's sometimes where like they sacrifice logic for kind of shock or violence or just to be crazy. Which I'm like, I don't know if you need it, and I think it kind of takes away from some of like the stuff that I liked.
Yeah, I mean, I admit that like, and then episode 6, is that where we got the eye getting stabbed out and the
that was episode 7.
That was episode 7. Episode 6 is what's the big shock? Lena's death, getting burned up, and burned to a crisp. And then episode 7 is the eye getting slashed out, and then Alicent going for the kids with the knife and cutting Rhaenyra. And then episode 8 is Vaemon getting his head cut off, which that
was good. I like
worked. Yeah. And then episode 9 seems to be the dragon coming out of the ground. Yeah, I mean, but for the most part, like, I guess it works in that, like, on Twitter, everything everybody's been talking about is like Rhaenys coming in.
Like I said, we said this last night. These episodes have been great, but there's always that one little thing that really keep them from being a perfect 10 out of 10. And yeah, like, even when I saw this, I had an issue originally with how that scene of her standing there staring at them overstayed its welcome for me originally. Like, it went on way too long, way too fucking long. I felt as though it was a little pointless. And I also feel as though it's very weird that there's only one entrance that these fire-breathing monstrosities can come in and out of. Like, there's not a back entrance.
Right. Wouldn't the scene have been just as shocking had she come out a side entrance and then the entire crowd turns around and sees the dragon, and she looks back and screams and then flies off, and you didn't have like the floor being ripped up and thousands of dead people, and like the scream in front of the family's face with the wind blowing. Like, it would have been just as foreboding. Like, oh shit, Rhaenys got away. Like, wouldn't it have? Like, they didn't need her to explode in the middle of the dragon pit. She could have come out a side entrance. Everyone saw the dragon, would have been like, or she could have still like threatened to flame them all from there. Maybe seen that there's all these small folk, decided not to do it because she didn't want to kill all those small folk, and then take off.
If I was in charge, I would have had Rhaenys strike up a weird friendship with Helaena, give Helaena more to do, since the fans clearly like Helaena. Obviously, in hindsight, we wouldn't have known that, but Helaena, maybe Rhaenys didn't want to kill Helaena. Maybe once again, I would also have that scene with Alicent and Rhaenys, with Alicent acknowledging that Aegon is a piece of shit, sure, but she firmly believes this was Viserys' final wish and testament. Lean into Alicent being the caring mother instead of the evil stepmother looking to do this, and this, which they kind of did here. Alicent sticks up for Rhaenyra by saying there's no way Viserys would want his daughter killed so his son could inherit. They should have leaned more into that. Once again, great episode. I love the Kingsguard twins. Everyone was on the...
Beesbury rocked. I did love, like, the slow burn.
He's a badass.
I did love the slow burn of Beesbury. Yeah. Like, they introduce every episode that, like, Beesbury is just this, like, doddering idiot that everybody that doesn't have any strength to him. And then you're like, no, Beesbury's a fucking rock star. You know,
Aemon came out of nowhere this episode too. Like, it should have been me. I'm the one that studies history and philosophy. It should be me.
right. I mean, technically he's not next in line, but
oh yeah.
I mean, they do try to kind of treat it like he's next in line, and it's like, well, technically, Jaehaerys, Aegon's son Jaehaerys would be next in line if he left.
Right. We only saw them briefly, but Aegon does have kids with Helena. Yes.
Yeah, because of the principle of primogeniture. But okay, you know, it's fine. It's fine.
What do you think of that ET name drop right there? Is that for the spinoff? Setting up the spinoff already?
Did I miss the ET? Did I miss it? I missed an ET name drop.
You did. So basically, when Christian Cole and Aemon are looking for, they're having that fatherly son moment. By the way, you mentioned it in the stream, and I didn't catch it, but on the second rewatch, yeah, I feel what you mean. But Aemon names drop ET by saying Aegon could be anywhere. He could be dead. He could be on a ship to ET by now. We don't know. Yeah,
that's weird.
It's Golden Empire, man. One. They're gonna hype that up.
Here we go with this bullshit. We don't fucking need we don't need ancient China. Just have an ancient China show. Why not? Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Mongol invasion. Marco Polo. Fuck it. We don't need E.T. That's ridiculous.
Well, okay. Well, to be fair, Carmine, if you had, let's say you did an ancient China show, and then in the middle of the show, you had like somebody slice open somebody's head and then somebody else masturbate on somebody's toes. Everyone would just be like, "Oh, you're trying to be Game of Thrones." By making it Game of Thrones, you get to be like, "We are Game of Thrones." Like, what are you fucking like? Of course, we're slicing up heads and jizz is flying everywhere. Okay, we are Game of Thrones, and so you don't have that criticism. Oh, you're trying to be Game of Thrones.
How did this rumor start of the fucking guy coming on her feet? How did that get out of control so fast? How?
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone hits me up privately and they're like, "Yo, tell me it's true. Does he come on her foot? Is it a thing? Is it gross and sticky? Does it smell bad?"
Yeah. So I'll tell you a quick little story. But years ago, a friend of mine was doing an investigation where this was in Afghanistan. We're in Afghanistan and I'm doing an audit and she's doing an investigation. And there was a rumor that some little story. There's something in Afghanistan called dancing boys, and dancing boy, because women cannot, because parties are segregated, you can't have women dancing at a party. So instead you'll have a dancing boy dance at a party. And usually these dancing boys are around 9 or 10 years old. And this, of course, makes Westerners very uncomfortable. Like, are people having sex with the dancing boys? I don't know. Maybe in some situations, but they're just little boys that dance at Afghan parties. But the existence of dancing boys makes Westerners very uncomfortable, and it became kind of this like running joke that these dancing boys like exist. And so for one of the government officials, there was a going away party. And somebody thought it would be funny to hire a dancing boy for him. And what's that?
They're hired.
Yeah. They're professional dancing boys. Yeah, just like you might get a belly dancer at a whatever party. But yeah, there are these little boys that are 9 or 10 years old, maybe up to 12 in Afghanistan that dance at parties. And so as a joke, at this guy's going away party, they hire a dancing boy, and they have the dancing boy like come out of a giant cake and he dances, and it like made the government official like uncomfortable. But you're supposed to give the dancing boy money, and he like hands the dancing boy like $1, and like everybody laughs. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Maybe a little culturally insensitive or whatever. But that story twisted so fast. And so when the investigators like saw the video, and it's like, well, it's a little tasteless that they had this like dancing boy come out of a cake, and probably just optics wise was really stupid to hire a dancing boy for your going away party. But like, there's nothing really criminal here, so like the whole thing was dropped. But like, it was really kind of but it's just weird how like the human mind works. And when telling a story, you always like, it's a game of telephone. You enhance it a little. You make the story a little more unusual, and then it just grows and grows and grows. So I think that's what happened with your masturbating Larys situation. That it grew a little bit.
Oh, could I say one more thing?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, did you notice that in the teaser, the preview for next episode, they show like adult Arax? I guess that's Luke's dragon, like the little one.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
People have pointed out that like its features look like it's a mix of Caraxes and Syraxes. Like the head is like Caraxes, and the body is like Syrax. So people like are making up theories that like the two dragons of Rhaenyra and Daemon mated over the course of like the series, and that's where the eggs came from.
I mean, I suppose I'm just thinking timeline wise. I mean, Syrax is producing eggs constantly. I guess Caraxes and Syrax like lived together in the early seasons in the Dragon Pit.
There's like precedent,
but of course that's not really how dragons work. Dragons don't really have sexes, but okay. But
there's like I know that in like the books they talk about like Jaehaerys's and Queen Alicent's dragons like would like coil with each other and sleep with each other a lot. So maybe they're saying that like the married couple, like also the dragons like take on the romance that the humans do, like through the psychic connection, the link.
Yeah, that's the idea. Of course, in Jaehaerys and Alicent didn't actually like each other, so that's kind of like the fault. I think the dragons liked each other, but their
Jaehaerys and Alicent didn't like each other. I know they had a rocky relationship, but doesn't George?
They had a very rocky marriage.
Doesn't George like? Think
He loves him, but I think it's pretty clear that all of the little things about Jaehaerys and Alicent being in love are bullshit, and that they actually fucking hated each other. I like they had a very rocky relationship. Like you wouldn't say like, oh, what a wonderful love story for like a couple that spent like 20 years apart, like separated. Like no one would say that. Like
I think George just didn't think it through. I think he wrote that stuff out and maybe had to like in retrospect, oh shoot, they hate each other. They spent so much
about the dragon sexes though, because there is some discussion about like do dragons, are there female and male dragons? What is a she dragon, what is a he dragon? We have no clue. It doesn't. What we know is that Dreamfire spends years alone without any other dragons around her, and she lays eggs. So that and 3 of which are supposedly get stolen by Alyssa Farman and are hatched into Dany's dragons. So it doesn't sound like dragons have sexual reproduction. Like it doesn't. They don't need men and women. Like, they don't need males and females to produce eggs. If we're just going on Dreamfire.
There are like lizards who can like self-fertilize and stuff, which I guess maybe it could be something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Is this like Jurassic Park with like the frogs?
By the way, I love Dragon Demands. He's been very quiet lately. He's doing all right. I asked him earlier. He goes, House of the Dragon episode 9 director Claire Kilner confirms she'll return for season 2. I asked.
Yeah, he just contacted her. Yeah,
he just contacted her. I should. I'll try to get Ryan Condal and find out what the fuck, because I really am annoyed that Christian Cole is no longer the Kingmaker. He's just the King Crown Placer.
The Crown Placer.
The Crown Placer.
Yeah, this is essentially what he is. But at the end of the day, it was a very good episode. It's just, this one guy in my comment section made a very good point. He said, this entire season keeps operating under the rule of cool with 0 consequences. It isn't good storytelling, even if it keeps the normies around. Well, the normies are king. They like the rule of cool, which is, once again, if it looks cool, keep it, even if it makes no sense. And that's what that final scene was. That's what the crab feeder thing was, where Daemon is an army. One-man army is.
I'm reminded of there's this. There used to be this show called Northern Exposure on, and I didn't even watch it, but there's one scene that I remember where this one character, he's trying to get his screenplay produced, and it's about an American Indian shaman in Alaska, and he's like talking to like this Hollywood exec dude, and he's like, "Nah, dude, like I just have this one really cool image of like somebody on a snowmobile with like 2 machine guns in his hands, like riding down a hill. Like, how can we like have that happen in your story?" And he's like, "Well, that's really tough considering like shamans are pacifists, but maybe he could like stop being a shaman at one point." And he's like, "What? Stop being a shaman? The guy stands for nothing. I hate this character already." Yeah, you're like this, but I'm imagining this like, okay, we need a scene where like Rhaenys busts through the floor and then like has her dragon and like screams at the entire royal family. Like, how are we gonna make that happen?
But no, Trey, what would you give this episode on a scale from 1 to 10?
I'll give it a 7.5. There we go.
Damn, really? I would give it an 8. Actually, I would give it an 8.5.
Oh,
It was,
nice.
like, I liked a good chunk of I liked most of it. The small little things, Christian Cole not being the kingmaker and not having a speech, and the Rhaenys thing at the end, minor nitpicks. I can give it a fair, good score. I'd watch this. I've seen this episode 3 times already. I would watch it a 4th time and enjoy it.
I would go in between you guys. I have the exact same criticisms of I was disappointed that they didn't land Kristen Cole, and the ending was another just like ridiculous shock thing. I think it's a little more excusable than Kristen Cole, only because like we're going to war, so like the lack of consequences don't necessarily mean as much, and maybe there will be consequences when it comes to the dragon pit, while Kristen Cole there was no consequences for him like beating somebody to death. And so like
to be fair to that, when he beat Beesbury, Harold Westerling drew his sword and told him
No, I'm fine with him beating I'm fine with him killing Beesbury like that. That's fine. I'm talking Joffrey Lonmouth again.
Oh, right.
I'm like why do I because episode 5 and episode 9 are similar in that you've got a pretty good episode up until a completely ridiculous shocking ending that kind of ruins everything. And so I would knock down this episode some. This is why like I think it's like an 8 rather than a 9. But like but I don't think Rhaenys like breaking through the floor and killing thousands of people is as bad as Kristen Cole killing Joffrey Lonmouth because of the consequences. Like Rhaenys doesn't need to answer for what she did because they're about to go to war. Kristen Cole did need to answer for what he did and never did. And like so like even though it's a more cartoonish scene where thousands of people are dying, it makes more sense with like human motivation than Kristen Cole's scene, which is why I think like Kristen Cole's scene is so devastating for that episode, which is why like that's my least favorite episode. But I can understand, Trey's apprehension in ranking it higher.
Yeah.
Damn, Trey. Really? 7? Damn,
I said
God.
7.5. 7.5. We're in the middle.
I have to ask you real quick, since I haven't spoken to you in quite some time.
Yeah, sure.
Have you been watching Rings of Power or She-Hulk?
I've not. I've heard about Rings of Power. I've been tempted to watch it. Should I watch Rings of Power? Is it good?
Yeah, give it a shot. Fuck it. Why not?
Okay.
It's okay. It's a trudge. Like you've got to like, it's they're long episodes. They're slow moving, but it's an okay show. It's okay.
How are you with when it comes to Lord of the Rings? Like, are you a big fan of it as you are of Ice and Fire?
Not as like big a fan of it as Ice and Fire, but like I've seen all the movies. I've seen the Hobbit movies as well. I've seen like the Rankin Bass stuff, and then I've read like bits and pieces of Lord of the Rings. So I know a fair amount. Just not as much as like A Song of Ice and Fire, where like I know like all these like really specific details.
Give it a shot and let me know what you think, because I'm actually very curious. Of course, me and Preston, we went through it, and
we'd probably both recommend She-Hulk and Andor before Rings of Power.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched Andor. That's another thing I haven't watched.
Oh, dude, get on Andor. You gotta get on Andor.
And Andor and She-Hulk are both more enjoyable watches. I do think you need to watch Rings of Power as like a cultural phenomenon. Like you need to be able to like say, look, I watched the show and it's this, you know?
Okay.
Like, because right now there's just a lot of crazy fucking noise about Rings of Power, and so you have to like have seen it yourself to be able to be like, come on, it's not that.
Yeah,
you know?
that's like the thing is I've seen like the like pop cultural response to Rings of Power and like I don't know all the extremes, and it's just kind of put me off from it. Maybe I should just watch it just to watch it, like divorce it from all that pop culture.
Oh
stuff.
yeah. It'll completely like blow your mind because you're like, this is nothing like people are describing. You know, it's just there. You know, it's one of the most visually beautiful shows. You know, that's just, you know, a little slow, and I don't know, take some liberties with the source material.
When that scene comes, because you told us about it before we started recording, when that scene pops up of Mordor popping on screen, just imagine it's not there, because I think it would have been more powerful had they just not explained to the audience that it was Mordor.
But Trey, the best actor in the whole thing is Uncle Benjen.
Oh, was that Uncle Benjen? I thought he looked familiar. I've just seen
Adar,
that one clip on Twitter. Oh, there we go.
Uncle Benjen's in it.
Uncle Benjen's
in it, and he's really great. He's really great.
Actually, Trey, real quick, since you saw that one clip of like Adar saying, people going, "What do we call it, my lord?" Yeah. And then it comes up in Mordor. Go to my Twitter right now. For the people watching this right now who don't know, it's twitter.com/RedTeamReview. You should be following me on there. And scroll down real quick. I uploaded a clip on October 15th of how that scene is better done. This was done by...
It was so much better done. Whoever did that, I'm like, oh my god, they need to hire
Nick
you.
Beardish over on Reddit. This fucking guy.
Oh, that's cool. With like the lightning strike and then showing the map. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's way better.
Yeah. That dude needs to get hired. That guy was fucking... That's fucking...
That looks like a professional made that.
Yes, I love that map is fucking great. I would argue that's the one thing House of the Dragon is missing, because remember, we don't have the map anymore, because Game of Thrones' intro showed us the map of where everything is, and I loved the first couple episodes of Rings of Power. They show the map.
Mick Beardish actually is semi-professional.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay.
He actually does. He actually does an entire, like, he has a business where he does titles.
Oh,
there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, McBeardish Motion Design. Like
McBeardish Motion Design. I thought that was just a Reddit name. I might actually hire this guy.
He has a semi. That's why he's so good at it. It wasn't just like some random guy.
Fuck, hey McBeardish, could you like do the? You know what? I'll probably hit him up privately because that was fucking awesome. Maybe do an intro for me. Fuck. But no, that map...
I was thinking the same thing about the House of the Dragon intro, though. Like, I don't know. The more I've seen it, the less of the less of a fan I am of it. I don't know. It's not super interesting to watch all the time. Like, Game of Thrones, I used to watch like the map thing. I wouldn't skip it because it was kind of cool. House of the Dragon, I don't know. It's just very abstract. I
skip the intro every time. There's no... It's stupid.
I skip it every time. I mean,
has it changed?
They add a couple more... It does. They've added like a couple. Okay. They've added a couple like more streams here and there. You still can't really tell what's going on.
Yeah.
Like if you go back and rewind it and like watch them all together, you can probably figure it out. But like it's not like now that you know like what's happened in this episode, you're like, oh, now they have 4 kids. Oh, if I go back here, there's 4 streams. Like that kind of stuff. But it's nothing. It's nothing where you're getting excited about seeing the Titan of Braavos like on the map or something like that.
Right. To be fair, I understand why they don't have the map again, because we don't really go to that many locations every episode. It's either King's Landing or Dragonstone, or Driftmark, and that's it. I kind of get it, because have they even gone into any other locations? No. For season 2, though, we will be going to other locations, so I don't know. I would have liked my idea for the map. I think you were there when I said this, Trey. My idea for the intro would have been go all the way from Valyria in Essos to like blood all the way from Valyria to Westeros, and it spreads to all the great houses and them conquering the great houses.
Yeah.
I would have liked that way better. And then they uniting the Seven Kingdoms in blood and fire. That would have been fucking epic. What are you going to do? Boys, do you mind if we wrap it up here?
All right.
Yeah, sure.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.